Good morning.
Good morning, everybody. I'm going to call this meeting to order. My name is Paul Ainsley. I'm the chair of the General Government Committee. We have quorum. I would now like to call meeting number 14 to order. Welcome, everybody. Just a reminder, today's meeting is being held by video conference and in person at City Hall in committee room number 1, where we are. This meeting is also being live streamed online at youtube.toronto/Toronto City Council Live. For the land acknowledgement, I would like to say on behalf of the members of the committee and staff that although we may be meeting at different locations today, the General Government Committee would like to acknowledge the land we're meeting on is the traditional territories of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Onondagashabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples. We also want to acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty Number 13 with the Mississaugas of the Credit. And just a reminder, if you are registered to speak at today's meeting, and I don't believe we have any speakers, so I'm going to skip this paragraph. Members, the city clerk has provided all agenda materials on toronto.ca/council and on the clerk's meeting portal. Clerk's IT staff are available to members if you need help with your devices. I'd also like to remind you to please submit and approve your motions by email to staff are available at ggc@toronto.ca to help with any motions. Are there any declarations of interest under the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act? Seeing none, can I have a motion to confirm the minutes from our last meeting on May 30th, 2024? Councillor Holyday, all in favor? Carried. Before we review our agenda, I'd like to note that we do have 2 delegated items, GG 14.1 and GG 14.2, which we will hear first, followed by a presentation on the overview of the City of Toronto's finance and treasury services. I'd also like to note there's a supplementary report with recommendations from the General Manager, Parks, Forestry and Recreation, and the Chief Procurement Officer on GG 14.8. So we're just going to go through the agenda. I'm going to change my script. All right, our first item is GG 14.1, apportionment of property taxes as of July 2nd, 2024. This is a hearing scheduled for 9:45, so I will hold that. Our next item is also scheduled for 9:45, GG 14.2, cancellation, reduction, or refund of property taxes or payments in lieu of taxes as of July 2nd, 2024 hearing, so I will hold that. GG 14.3, as I said, is overview of the City of Toronto's finance and treasury services. I will hold that. GG 14.4, amendment to blanket contracts 470-23952, 470-23953, 470-23954, with UAP NAPA Auto Parts for inventory management services for fleet maintenance. Any holds? Seeing none, can I have somebody move it? Councillor Burnside, all in favor? That carries. GG 14.5, amendment to purchase order number 6047271 for professional engineering design services for residual management and ultraviolet treatment facilities at the Island Water Treatment Plant. Any holds? Can I have a mover? Councillor Burnside, all in favor? That carries. GG 14.6, award of document 39796222294 to Roma Fencing Limited for the non-exclusive supply, delivery, installation, repair, removal, and disposal of chain link fencing for various divisions and locations in the City of Toronto locations. I need a shorter title next time. Any holds? Seeing none, can I have a mover? Councillor Cheng, all in favor? That carries. Next time we're just gonna call it fence maintenance. GG 14.7, we have a presentation on that one, so I'm gonna hold it and not read the title. No offense, Howie. GG 14.8, process for award of negotiable request for proposal document number 405-342-43337 for the construction of 2 electric ferry vessels. No, we held 14.7.
Hold that item, please.
And then along with that is 8A, award of negotiable request for proposal document 405-342-4337 to Damon Shipbuilding 5BV for construction of PAX and RoPax electric propulsion ferry vessels for the Toronto Island. Councillor Holiday, you want to hold that? Yeah. GG 14.9, award of document 3987477-359 to Bennett Mechanical Installations 2001 Limited for construction of services and amendment of purchase order number 6048934 to GHD Limited for professional services for the Humber Treatment Plant Rehabilitation and Upgrades Project. Any holds? Can I have a mover? Councillor Holiday, all in favor? That carries. GG 14.10, award of a non-competitive purchase order to Chubb Fire and Security Canada Corporation for the security monitoring systems and services at 800 Kipling Avenue. Can I have a mover? Councillor Chang, all in favor? That carries. GG 14.11, amendment to blanket contract number 47022-859 of the existing property management agreement with Kipling Realty Management Incorporated at Canoe Landing Facilities for Parks, Forestry, and Recreation in Ward 10.
I'd like to hold that item, please.
Councillor Chang's holding number 11. Number 12, amendment to non-competitive blanket contract 4702-3317 and non-competitive procurement for the provision of warranty and non-warranty service bulletins, safety recalls, services, tools, subscriptions, and training on Cummins engines. Moved by Councillor Holiday, all in favor, that carries. Okay, perfect, thank you. GG 14.13, amendment to purchase order 605-0005 with Yardi Canada Limited to integrate a centralized affordable renting housing access system into existing web-based system and to renew the existing license agreement.
I'd like to hold that, please.
Held by Councillor Cheng. GG 14.14, amendment to purchase order number 47015457 with Bell Canada for the integrated telecommunications infrastructure. Mover, moved by Councillor Mantis, all in favor, that carries. GG 14.15, non-competitive contract with Trojan Technologies Group ULC for the supply of proprietary parts and maintenance services at Ashbridges Bay Treatment Plant for Toronto Water. Moved by Councillor Crisanti, all in favor, that carries. GG 14.16, non-competitive contract with Hootsuite Incorporated for enterprise social media management platform.
I'd like to hold that item, please.
Councillor Chang's holding number 16. GG 14.17, non-competitive contract with Canadian Red Cross for emergency social services. Moved by Councillor Holiday, all in favor, carried. GG 14.18, redevelopment of the St. Lawrence Market North emergency non-competitive contract and purchase order amendment for contract administration services. Hold by Councillor Holiday. GG 14.19, revenue sharing agreement for 14 Proprietary signs near the FG Gardiner Expressway. Can I have a mover? Councillor Mantas, all in favor, carried. GG 14.20, sale of 120 Grangeway Avenue to Metrolinx Scarborough Subway Extension Project in my ward, so I'm going to move it. All in favor, that carries. GG 14.21, 245 Bartley Drive, designation of a portion of the property used by the Toronto Transit Commission as a municipal capital facility. Moved by Councillor Holiday, all in favor, that carries. GG 14.25, claim for damages, Toronto Paramedic Service vehicle components. Oh, sorry, wrong number. GG 14.22. Moved by Councillor Holiday, all in favor, that carries. GG 14.23, application for approval to expropriate portions of properties at the rear of Jolly Way and the rear east side of Jenkinson's Way for the Scarborough Rapid Transit Bus Replacement Stage 1 in Ward 21. Any holds? Can I have a mover? Councillor Mantas moving, all in favor, that carries. GG 14.24, expropriation of a part of 165 the Queensway, Stage 2. Moved by Councillor Burnside, all in favor, that carries. GG 14.25, supporting the Learning Enrichment Foundation by identifying community space in York Southweston. Yeah. Councillor Nunziata?
Yes, can I just hold? I have one question and I can release it after you go
Sure.
through your first items. Thank you.
So I'll hold it in my name for you. GG 14.26, annual update on OMERS related to the city's employer contributions. I will move that. All in favor, that carries. GG 14.27, Toronto Fire Department superannuation and benefit fund funding valuation report as of December 31st, 2023. Any holds? Moved by Councillor Mantas, all in favor, that carries. All right, we are going to go back to our first two items, which are public hearings scheduled for 5 minutes ago. First item is GG 14.1, apportionment of property taxes as of July 2nd, 2024 hearing. No speakers. I am going to move the item. All in favor, that carries. Our next item scheduled for 9:45, GG 14.2, cancellation, reduction, or refund of property taxes or payments in lieu of taxes, July 2nd, 2024 hearing, no deputants. I will move the report. All in favor, that carries. We are on to item number 3, GG 14.3, overview of the City of Toronto's finance and treasury services. Morning, Stephen. The floor is yours. You can start whenever you're ready.
All right, perfect. Thank you, Councillor Ainsley, and thank you, GGC, for inviting us to present on basically an overview of finance and treasury services. What we intend to do is we'll provide a brief overview of all the different divisions or sections that support finance and treasury services. And then the thought was that when I conclude that, I'm going to turn it over to Genevieve to do a bit of a deeper dive into purchasing and materials management, in large part because they primarily support this committee and give us an idea to be able to speak to the different sections and areas within purchasing and materials management. So I'll start off. Finance and Treasury Services, through 10 distinct divisions or sections, ensures effective use of the city's resources. And we do this by providing sound financial advice, maintaining financial controls, developing and implementing effective financial strategies, and by providing timely, accurate, and efficient services to programs, agencies, council, and the public. And just the diagram there you see on the right is just all the different areas that support finance, or that are embedded within finance and treasury services in support of these deliverables. If we move to the next slide, I'll just walk us through some of the sections and what they deliver. So I'll start off with, and we have our staff here as well if there's any questions that you might have, but Lauren Birch, who's our Director of Strategic Policy and Programs embedded within the Office of the CFO, delivers strategic financial advice and leadership on key and emerging issues, including actions and initiatives from the updated long-term financial plan. Althea Hutchinson is our Executive Director of Financial Planning, responsible for leading and developing the city's balanced budget, providing financial advice, policies to all of our divisions and agencies across the city, as well as providing in-year financial reports through council. Next slide. We have with us today Dury Lee and Mark Rosick. They are both rotating as acting directors of our accounting services. Accounting services delivers sound accounting, commodity tax, and payment card industry compliance, policy and advice, commodity tax and financial system support, payment processing, compliant and timely financial and management reporting. We also have Mike Moriera, who's our Director of Strategic Enterprise Integration and Modernization, again embedded in the Office of the CFO, responsible for delivering financial system transformation, process improvement, strategic enterprise integration, and modernization. Next slide. Randy Leclerc is our Director of Capital Markets, responsible for our investment and debt portfolio management and cash management here in the city. We also have Melissa Ferreira, our Director of Insurance and Risk Management, who delivers insurance and claims risk advice and risk mitigation strategies across the city. Next slide. We have today David McIsaac, who's our Executive Director of Finance Shared Services. He's also our Interim Controller. Finance Shared Services provides leadership and support for revenue services and pension, payroll, and employee benefits. Leading revenue services is John Longarini, our acting director of revenue services, who deliver property tax and utility billing, implementation, parking tickets, operations, client services, revenue, accounting, and collection. We also have a vacant position that we're in the midst of filling, which is our director of pension, payroll, and employee benefits. With that division providing payroll, employee benefits, and pension services to employees and pensioners in an accurate, efficient, and timely manner. Next slide. Internal audit, we have both Gifford Chu, who's our acting director of internal audit, and Stuart Campbell, who is our director of internal audit, currently finalizing an assignment that he's on. Internal audit's responsible for business and risk consulting on policies, process, and information system. Assurance services, including compliance, operational, financial, forensic, and internal controls and review. And lastly, we have Genevieve Sharkey, just to my right, our Chief Procurement Officer, with purchasing and materials management, delivering procurement of goods and services in excess of $3 billion annually, with a focus on suppliers who support equitable and environmental outcomes. We feel it's important to now, I'll turn it over to Genevieve to get into a little bit more on purchasing and materials management, as they are the primary division within Finance and Treasury Services that supports this committee.
Thanks, Steve.
All right, good morning, everyone, through the chair. So what we'd like to say in PMMD is it all starts with procurement. Purchasing materials management provides leadership on the procurement of goods, services, and ensures that processes are completed in a fair, open, and transparent manner. As noted by Steve, items submitted to committee include contract awards and amendments where required. That includes competitive and non-competitive, and reports on the procurement bylaw and supplementary procurement policies. PMMD is broken down into 3 units, specifically the Program Support Policy and Strategy Unit, Purchasing and Client Services, and Fair Wage Office. Next slide, please. What do we do? Within our policy and program planning section, we oversee the general social, sustainable, and Indigenous procurement policies, as well as administer the social procurement program. And within compliance and operational support, this is where we conduct our compliance audits and provide business support to PMMD. Next slide, please. Also very important is our supply chain transformation that has been ongoing for the past number of years as we transition from the old school paper to more new school methods by building and using the city's procurement system, which is SAP Ariba. The supply chain transformation team also standardizes, streamlines, and automates the electronic approval process, which I'm sure many of you have tried in this room. And loved, of course. Thanks, Alex. Up next, we have our purchasing client services. This is what you are probably more familiar with. We are broken down into, again, 2 sections within this unit, which are the purchasing client services specifically that provide procurement services to all divisions within the city. And then the category management and strategic sourcing arm, which focuses on high spend categories. So within construction, facilities, technology, fleet, waste management, and professional services. To be clear, both of these units do perform procurement methods and just procurements in general, just at a different levels. Next slide, please. Lastly, within purchasing client services, we have the materials management and stores. What we do here is we operate the main warehouse at 7099 Islington Avenue, providing divisions with materials and products as needed. Brooms, shovels, gloves, and as well the very important PPE, which we do maintain the PPE warehouse on behalf of Toronto Public Health and the Toronto Emergency Management Division. And that is it for PMMD.
Okay, thank you. And thanks for taking the time to just hear a bit of an overview of Finance and Treasury Services. Happy to take any questions that you may have. And again, we've got most of our staff are here today if there's any questions on any of us.
Okay, thank you very much. Really appreciate the presentation and all the details and refamiliarizing myself with some faces. Does anybody have any questions on the presentation? Go ahead, Councillor Holliday, and then Councillor Chang. Go ahead.
Thank you and good morning. I just wondered if you could talk to the committee a little bit about how the delegation of authority works, because the division is central in many ways, but you aren't necessarily responsible for budgets. And I'm always intrigued as reports come through or purchase agreements or changes come through, and there's questions about, why this, why now? And so I think you provide advice. You also provide a controllership function, but then individual departments and areas ultimately have accountability and decision-making. So how do the two mesh together?
Thanks, Councillor Holloway. So I'll speak to it. Obviously, we're pretty wide-reaching in terms of all the services that we offer. I'll speak to it in terms of budgets and happy to branch out in a couple of other areas. So we do have many divisions and agencies across the city. They ultimately are responsible for their budgets. The role that Finance and Treasury Services plays, and in this instance, financial planning, is really an oversight of the entire consolidated budget across the city. Obviously, leading the process, in the budget process, putting out guidelines, technical approaches, review, playing that control function is an important part. And ultimately, the budget that would come forward and be proposed by staff would come through work that is happening, led by the Executive Director of Financial Planning, with consultation, obviously, with the CFO and all of SLT. In terms of initiatives or reports that might come forward, there is a requirement, it's within our financial control bylaw, that any report that has a financial implication be provided to financial planning for review on behalf of the CFO. That review will ensure we're complying with the different aspects of reporting requirements in terms of what are the financial implications, longer term, things of that nature. We will review, we will make sure that that's clear and articulated within the report itself. But again, to your point, it's us providing advice and oversight in terms of what is the implication so that council has that full suite of information to be able to make a decision on an initiative.
So I'm also often intrigued on how the decision-making process works when someone decides to spend money. So people can do it in a few different ways. Sometimes it's binding the city to a contract, knowing that some work is going to happen, and then you got to pay the bill. And then often we see reports, even at this committee, where we're already into the contract, and it's about managing the contract, and somebody has signed off bills somewhere, and it's either exceeded the threshold of the purchase order or the budget or, you know, a number of stop points. So who in the tree signs off on those things? Is it do individual managers have management over their budget, or does that fall back to the center?
So there is a review that will happen centralized within Finance and Treasury Services. So there are two distinct lenses, and you've raised both of them. So if you're looking at an award, in an instance, the two lenses we will look at is there budget approval? So for the first purchase order, our staff will review that purchase order against the approved budget and ensure that the purchase order is in line with the approved budget. Now, in instances, and this is a uniqueness of the way our capital program is built, it may be that we've approved the budget in a way where there is multi-years worth of approvals to be able to enter into a multi-year award. So that award will be reviewed against what council has approved in terms of the overall budget. You then may see draws against that purchase order. So the lens there will be, is there adequate space within the purchase order to be able to support it? So it's not necessarily the review against the budget now you're reviewing against the purchase order. If you need to exceed the purchase order amount, division or agency, or division in this case, would come forward to this committee for a purchase order amendment. Finance and Treasury Services would review that, not just to ensure it's in compliance with the procurement side of things, which Genevieve's team would work on. We would review it against the overall approved budget. So there's the two lenses. One is, do you have the authority within the purchase order? The second lens is, do you have the authority within, let's say, a total project cost? And if you don't have in both, you would need to put forward a recommendation to amend both the budget and the purchase order.
Is that supposed to happen before the work is done?
Work should only really proceed with the authorities that are in place unless there's some emergency provisions that allow for it to otherwise happen.
And that's the financial control bylaw that controls all of that?
So there's the financial control bylaw that really speaks to the budget aspect and the controls within the budget. Then there's the purchasing bylaw that speaks to within the controls on the purchasing side.
And how's purchasing bylaw policed?
Can you speak to that?
Okay, so we do work hand in hand with the financial control bylaw. So there is a lot of responsibility on divisions to, again, manage their own contracts. So unfortunately, we only get involved at a point where we are approached by divisions. We do monitor, as noted within our compliance, about blanket contracts and how that spend is going. And divisions are notified so that we ensure that they are not overspending. And kind of provide that notification so we can come back here to committee to get the proper approvals. So I think that's I'm going to use the word policing, as you noted, that we do. We don't manage the contracts for divisions, so therefore we don't have insight into what they're doing when they're doing change orders or amendments until they do come to us for amending that payment mechanism, which is that purchase order or blanket contract.
Thank you, Councillor Holliday. Councillor Chang, questions of staff?
Thank you. Through the chair, I'm just wondering about the financial systems transformation. We know that new technologies are being introduced all the time, and we want to become more lean and modern as a very large city with a lot of systems. And I just was wondering, where are we in our progress across divisions in terms of our financial systems? Are all divisions online with some kind of system that has been set as a benchmark, or are we halfway there? What does the journey look like in terms of bringing transformation to financial management systems?
Thank you, Councillor Chang. I'll start, and then I'm going to turn it to our expert in this area, Mike Moriera. But I'll start and say, for the most part right now, our city divisions are running SAP. We've been running SAP for a long time. He just moved to a seat with a microphone. Mike can probably speak to the version that we're running now. We're also embarking on a very large financial systems transformation project, which is updating the systems that we use across the city to S/4HANA is the new platform within SAP that we're migrating to. So we are in the midst of that project. There's also significant other upgrades that are going to be required across various systems that we have in the city. We work very closely with technology services in terms of mapping out and sequencing the time that we would come forward for budget approvals and work plans on each of those initiatives. But I'll turn it to Mike, who can probably speak in better detail than I can on some of these initiatives.
So through the chair, the modernization initiative is changing the core finance system. It also integrates with our budgeting solution as well as our payroll solution and purchasing. And all of that is being implemented in a few phases. The status is we're actually in the tail end of our design and going into our testing phases and an implementation down the road next year.
So halfway there, 60%, 80%?
I'd say about halfway there, yeah.
Okay. And as we implement this newer system, is there then opportunity to embed it in how the data is input and managed, that there'd be automated red flags that are put up when certain activities happen that would trigger some kind of notification of abnormal activity, or when we're straying away from a contract?
There will be budget controls in place when projects are set up with thresholds, as CFO mentioned, with council approval authority. And the system has different settings for warnings or messages if something will be coming up to closer to the threshold being set.
And Mike, sorry, Councillor, I was just going to add, so our current system, while we are going through updates, our current system does give notifications on specific purchase orders as well. In fact, Genevieve can speak to it in more detail, but there are reports that go out to each divisions that speak to the level of spend against the initial projects once they hit a threshold. I believe it might be 80% or?
Well, it's actually an ongoing tracking that happens. So we do highlight those that are 75%, 80%, and or just overspent completely. This unfortunately becomes in the hands very much of divisions to provide the additional information for us to proceed with amending or just moving forward with next steps.
And for financial services, the finance and treasury services, you have a unique system-wide perspective on how our budget is being allocated and how the spends are going. And so do you rank divisions on their financial management internally? I'm not saying you necessarily have to publicize, but are you internally examining the performance of the different divisions and then working with city manager to improve the ones that need improvement?
Through the chair, yeah, so while it's not, we don't have an official ranking or an unofficial ranking, we do provide services across both city divisions and agencies, and are actually an area I feel we provide a pretty significant value add. I think we've been able to develop a rapport where our divisions and agencies seek us out and reach out to us for financial supports at the beginning of initiatives to ensure that we're moving forward in a way that's financially prudent in line with our controls. We do look at, obviously, we'll look at spending, both operating and capital, on a quarterly basis. We do get to understand the unique challenges that exist across all of our divisions and agencies and try to set up our supports, our training, our structures in a way where we provide to those supports to the highest risk areas to be able to advance and address those initiatives. So that's something that happens throughout the year. Either it is part of our ongoing supports, pre-submission supports, or even post-budget submission supports to be able to support that. And that's just from a budget perspective. Our accounting services do the same from an accounting compliance perspective. The same would happen on procurement, our insurance and risk, and across the board, where we very much do review the programs we're supporting and ensure we support them in a way where it addresses their needs.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Chang. Any other questions from council members on this item? Sure.
Yes, sir.
Thanks, Chair. My question is for Mr. Chu, I think, because Acting Director of Internal Audit. I raised some questions. I know I've raised them before, just about controls around purchasing and contracts. Could you tell me a little bit about the mechanism that internal audit would use to look at risks over the organization? And, you know, that's just an example. How would that float up to your work plan if that was something that was important for the organization to look at?
So we include in our work plan, annual work plan, reviews of contracts across the city. So every year we will pick contracts and look at systemic issues. And the purpose of those is more for education, to educate divisions how they can improve their contract management processes. So it is a part of our ongoing work plan throughout the years.
If I may go just a little deeper, so beyond contract management, there's also adhering to the purchasing bylaws and the processes around that. And is there a way to capture a wider, maybe there's not one, but a wider issue as opposed to a case-by-case issue where, and the thing I always lament about at this committee is we always see these reports come forward where you're almost catching up to where the organization's at and the contract seems to be behind, or the purchase order seems to be behind. So it's brought to the committee and you don't have a lot of choice but to approve it at this point. So how would that sort of get caught on an organization-wide basis? Because I won't point to any area, it's just sort of a pattern that I've noticed.
Right. So like our contract management reviews are end-to-end, so we start from all the way from the procurement process all the way to the end. So we do identify those, but it's more an after the fact, as you indicated, and we try to identify, like I mentioned, systemic issues that might address issues going forward. But in terms of managing the procurement process as it goes, it's more a divisional responsibility.
It's ultimately right, because they're signing off on it. So do you work then with divisions, or is there a concerted effort at an organization level, or does it belong somewhere else? Maybe it's not internal audit.
Well, like we're a advisory service, so ourselves, along with PMMD, we will be available for divisions if they ask us to consult with us or to provide any input in terms of any procurements that they're working on.
At an organizational level, how would internal audit get engaged? As opposed to a division coming to you and saying, help,
right?
How could that be triggered at a higher level, looking at all divisions?
Right, so as I mentioned in our work plan, that's part of our contract management review that we look at. So every year we will identify several divisions that we want to look at, and then we would assess our findings across multiple divisions and identify areas which are common in terms of that may be problematic and bring that to the attention to trying to resolve at a corporate level.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Good. Okay. Thank you, Councillor Holiday. Other questions by members of the committee? Seeing none, can I have somebody move receipt of the report?
Mr. Chair, I've been trying to get your attention.
Councillor Crisanti, you have questions of staff?
Yeah, yes, I do, and I did send a note in the chat, but maybe you didn't see it. I do. Thanks so much. Just so procurement, and we've discussed this before. I think Steve and Genevieve as well. In the past, we've talked about maximizing purchasing power. So tell me a little bit about everyone we procure for. I gather it encompasses all the city divisions, and do we work with agencies? Can you just tell me how we go through that process of procurement and who's included in all our procurement policies?
Yeah, of course. So we do procure for all divisions within the city. We do not directly procure for agencies, but we are part of a group, it's a cooperative purchasing group that is aligned with all City of Toronto agencies and a bit beyond to get our best value, truly. So we meet on a quarterly basis as all of these agencies to come together to look at the list of procurements that we're doing and see where we can potentially combine forces, as you say, to get our best value. So that would, that outcome would be either we do a cooperative purchasing or what we call here piggybacks. Again, there's a couple of different ways that we can truly get that best value achieved.
Okay, so to maximize purchasing power, we cooperate with other agencies, but we don't purchase anything directly for them. So if we have an order in for, 200,000 pens for the City of Toronto or whatever, do we include other aeither that they also require the same product?
So not in all procurements, but in many procurements, we do have, again, what we call either a cooperative clause or a piggyback clause, more informally, where these agencies can purchase off our agreements, where they can take advantage of that better value because of our numbers. So again, I say it's not in all procurements because naturally we won't see them in construction or other services. But one example is fuel. We have other agencies participating in fuel. Again, it's very specific on the goods and service, but we do have those, absolutely.
Do you think there's ever a time that we could centralize all the purchasing for everyone, including agencies? Or does it need to be kept separate?
I mean, you are asking the wrong person here because I would say yes, but I'm going to leave that to Steve.
Thank you.
Well, he's sitting right next to you, so maybe he's got the answer.
No, so I do think there are opportunities to identify where there may be that shared service approach, and I know there have been reviews in the past. I think there's uniqueness and complexities that exist in some of our agencies that would need to be considered and thought through with any further work that would be done on the subject.
So you'll be looking into it?
So I know that there had been some work that had been done in the past looking into it. I'll have to go back and see where the final results were. I'm happy to look at those final results, but as it stands right now, there is no existing initiative that is looking at centralizing procurement across the city.
All right, that's fine. Thanks, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Crisanti. Any questions from anybody else on this item? Seeing none, can I have a motion to receive the item? Councillor Burnside, all in favor? That carries. Thank you. Our next item, sorry, we're just going to deviate from the agenda a little bit. We're going to do GG 14.25, supporting the Learning and Enrichment Foundation by identifying community space in York Southweston in Ward 5, which is Councillor Nunziata's ward. Councillor, thank you for visiting us this morning. You have questions?
Thank you. Yeah, just one question to staff. So your I read your recommendations. So just a question, are you going to continue working with LEF? Because as you know, their lease expires soon, and I just want to ensure that you are going to still work with them.
Through you, Mr. Chair, to Councillor Nunziata, absolutely. Councillor will continue to work with LEF to help them with their space needs. Okay. Because that member's motion that went through. Okay, I just wanted to make sure that we'll continue working with them. Because as you know, they have to leave their space very shortly. And so thank you for that. And I want to thank you, staff, for the report and meeting with LEF, and ask the chair if he wants to move the recommendation, and thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Nunziata. Did you want to say a few words, or you?
Just wanted to thank staff.
Okay, all right. So GG 14.25, supporting the Learning Enrichment Foundation by identifying community space in York Southweston. I will move that report. All in favor? That carries. Thank you, Councillor Nunziata. All right, our next item is GG 14.7, amendment to purchase order number 604-4203 with Concept Naval Experts Maritime Incorporated for the contract administration services for the construction and delivery of 2 electric ferries and associated shore-sided infrastructure for parks, forestry, and recreation. And I believe we have a presentation from staff on this.
Through the chair we do, so we'll just come up to the front.
Okay, thank you.
Good morning, everybody. Through the chair, thank you for the opportunity to present to you about the long-awaited award of the ferry procurement. I'll start and then turn it over to my colleague, Paul Farish, to walk us through the details. If we could get the next slide, thank you. So the city, through Parks, Forestry, and Recreation Division, operates year-round ferry services to and from Toronto Island for residents, students, staff, and visitors, as well as emergency operational and commercial vehicles. Over 1.5 million people visit the island every year. The 1993 Toronto Island Residents Community Stewardship Act mandates the city to provide a specified level of ferry services year-round. The city's ferry fleet includes 4 primary vessels, 3 of which are used as part of the seasonal schedule that ramps up during the prime summer season, and 1 heritage vessel, the Trillium. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Paul to walk us through the details. Thank you.
Thank you, Howie, and good morning to members of committee. As Howie's noted, the city runs ferries to the Toronto Islands, a one-of-a-kind destination in our city. A reliable, efficient, and comfortable journey should be part of that island experience. While all the vessels in our fleet are well maintained and meet Transport Canada's requirements, they're also all over 60 years old. The aging ferry fleet, therefore, results in unexpected repair costs and service disruptions, as we've experienced this year and last year. In 2015, City Council began to allocate funding to the ferry fleet replacement strategy. In 2022, Council gave direction to staff to pursue fully electric vessels rather than diesel or hybrid vessels. This direction prompted significant changes in design, as well as additional consultation with stakeholders as well as regulators. In July 2023, city staff issued a negotiated RFP, and that received 2 bids. In March of 2024, we began negotiations with a highest ranking supplier, and today we're here to make recommendations to advance this work on construction and delivery of the first 2 vessels. The recommended award is to Damen Shipbuilding from the Netherlands. Damen is a shipbuilder with significant industry experience. They have over 35 shipyards worldwide and major contracts in Canada and internationally, including with BC Ferries. The construction and delivery of the 2 vessels will begin with the delivery of the passenger and vehicle vessel, followed by an exclusive passenger vessel. Together, the contract award is for $92 million, including contingencies. This is funded through PFNR's 10-year capital plan, and funding sources include debt, development charges, and the ferry replacement reserve fund. The incorporation of 2 replacement vessels in the fleet will bring large number of benefits to ferry operations and to Torontonians. One major gain is in capacity. The ROPAX, or the passenger vehicle vessel, will replace the Angera. That's our 1 vessel that operates 12 months a year, has ice-breaking capacity, and serves Wards Island. Their capacity will increase from 220 passengers to 650 at a minimum. The passenger vessel will replace the William Inglis and again increase capacity significantly, in this case up to 1,300 passengers on board. Just as importantly, the new vessels will bring an improved travel experience for passengers in terms of the amenities and the design features of a modern ferry. That includes wider ramps for more efficient onboarding, accessible washrooms and AODA-compliant features, seating on the main deck and a fully open upper deck, onboard temperature control, and much more. We heard much in terms of feedback from stakeholders, from residents on the island, from the business improvement area, and others traveling across the water to finalize these designs. As directed by council, the vessels will be fully electric. This is an important initiative in our Transform TO net zero strategy. Then transition from diesel to electric will significantly reduce the greenhouse gas emissions resulting from the fleet and save the city fuel costs. The new vessels as well will reduce the risk of disruption and costs for unexpected repairs. We understand the priority of adding new reliable ferries to the city's fleet. Council's consideration of this report this month is necessary to stay on the planned schedule that is on the screen now. The next 2 years will be busy. As Dahlman constructs, launches, and tests the vessels, the city will undertake upgrades at Jack Layton Ferry Terminal to accommodate the larger electric vessels. PFNR will also continue to advance improvements to the travel experience and passenger capacity as we're doing this summer, both on the island side as well as at Jack Layton Ferry Terminal. The first vessel is scheduled to arrive in Toronto Harbor in Q4 2026 and enter operations approximately 4 weeks later. The second vessel will follow when the St. Lawrence Seaway opens in the spring of 2027. The recommended agreement with Dahlman advances both the modernization of our ferry fleet as well as implementation of the Toronto Island Master Plan and Transform TO, among other city strategies. We are committed to constantly improving the travel experience for ferry passengers. The introduction of 2 new vessels in 2026 and 2027 are important steps forward in all those regards. Thank you. We look forward to your questions.
Okay, thank you very much. Questions of staff? Deputy Mayor Malik, thank you for visiting us this morning.
Thank you very much, and appreciate the presentation. I guess my first question just touches on the environmental benefits of electrification and our goals around Transform TO and the like. Can you give a few more specifics about the benefits of electrification to the city's climate leadership goals?
Through the chair to Deputy Mayor Malik. So I'll start, and certainly Paul can add in. In terms of the benefits of electrification, we have worked with the Energy and Climate Division to assess how much energy savings there would be. And we've noted that approximately 600 cars would be taken off the road once the full ferry fleet is replaced. And there's also certainly an operational savings in terms of, we estimate approximately $1 million per year once the full fleet is electrified, both in terms of fuel and other savings. So combined, we also project that there can be a payback within 20 years for the costs associated with the electrification of the ferries themselves.
That's helpful. Can you just take a few more moments on the financial saving expected from electrification? Are you able to give that to us a little bit more line by line?
Through the chair, we've estimated approximately $815,600 per year in operational savings, and about $642,800 per year in fuel savings. I would have to break the operational savings further down and follow up with you on that. I don't have that line by line here.
And with larger ferries and more efficient trips, as was laid out in the presentation, are we expecting ferry revenues to increase? And if so, by how much?
Through the chair, we are expecting ferry revenues to increase based on the increased capacity. We'd have to sort of tabulate how much additional revenue we would expect through estimating how much additional ferry capacity we know how much we can take, it's just estimating how much that would be actually assumed.
So the increase in capacity is 42%, as has been shared, and faster trips. So it's more people and more trips. That's the basis of the calculation?
Correct. So we would be able to accommodate more passengers per trip, would reduce lineups. The boats would run on the most efficient schedule that we can create as we get closer. And certainly then the expectation based on the user fees charged at that time would allow for us to recover greater revenues from ticket sales.
Okay, and from the conversations and the process around coming to this place with the ferries, we've seen that the design increases the speed and the reliability of ferry trips through increased maneuverability. What does that mean?
I'll turn that to Paul for a response.
One of the features of the new vessels is that they start and stop more rapidly than the existing vessels. So again, to your point that you mentioned, we're looking to move across the water, but also move out of the port faster.
And what does that mean for safety, efficiency? You know, I guess maintenance has been a huge concern with our current ferry fleet. How does this help?
So it's a major win in terms of efficiency, in terms of safety. We're still operating the most modern, most safe vessels possible right now. It's not considered to be a risk. It's just we're replacing vessels that are 60 or years older with something that's modern and meant to actually be working well in terms of our docking systems, wider ramps, moving people in and out of the docks faster.
We're dealing with both the items together? Okay. So I did have a few questions about the service contract, and I just wanted to hear a little bit more about the type of services the contract will provide as we move into the tender award phase.
Through the chair, so the additional services being procured include contract administration for the full length of the construction period. So it will include retention of supervisory team that would be on site in Romania during the course of construction, providing reports to the city on progress that they're making. Additional design for civil, electrical, and dolphin systems for vessel stabilization, and tender documents related to the shoreside infrastructure work that will be required at the 4 docking stations at Jack Layton Ferry Terminal, and then general arrangements for accommodating the new ferries with respect to Transport Canada requirements.
And is that typical with a contract and agreement like this?
I would say, given the specialization of what we're procuring and constructing, we have gone with the experienced naval consultants to undertake that support for us, and they've been on board with us throughout the design journey that we've been on for the last number of years.
Thank you. And I have one final question. Just what considerations have been taken into accelerating the timeframe that's been laid out?
Sure. So as members of committee are familiar with, this has been a relatively long-running journey with different direction from council along the way. In terms of what we issued in our NRFP in 2023, we did set out a project schedule, which we expected bidders to respond to with their own expertise. We have since negotiated with the supplier here to reduce that schedule as much as possible, being very explicit in terms of the different stages of their delivery schedule all the way through to vessels arriving in the harbor. We also have had that vetted by external expertise, including, as mentioned, our naval consultant.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Malik. Councillor Fletcher, did you have questions on these items?
Yes, I did. And things happen pretty fast. Once you decide to do something, it will all roll out very quickly. So what and who is making arrangements for any repairs? There seem to be very specialized marine vessels. So what's that plan and who has that plan?
Through the chair, currently we have a contract with a dry docking company. What we will look to do with Concept Novel is get certainly advice on what the maintenance post-warranty schedule is and what services we would need to procure to ensure that we can meet Transport Canada safety requirements throughout the lifespan of the vessels.
So I guess there could be a new RFP. These are very specialized vessels. And I guess I'm going to ask a procurement question, whether or not, given the cost and the speciality of the vessels, and not everybody can do that work, what steps need to be taken to ensure that whichever dry dock is going to be able to work on these knows what they're doing? I guess I'm going to ask that to you. I'm going to ask that to our
Right
deputy.
behind you, through the chair. What we will be doing is, again, we will be
Can you
working.
tell me who you are, please? I can't see.
Of course, Genevieve Sharkey, Chief Procurement Officer.
Chief Procurement Officer. Okay, thank you.
So what we would do is we would work with the division to understand the full requirements and then discuss the options within the procurement, which means, does it become a competitive, or is there such a niche market that it is not a competitive? If it is a competitive, then we would again work with the division to identify the technical requirements and experience required to ensure that they can meet the needs of the city, as well as the expertise required to again, to meet the requirements.
So you haven't determined that prior to this purchase? Nobody's determined exactly what the requirements are for a very specialized vessel to be repaired, to be, I'm not looking at even regular maintenance, what would be required by that company, which staff they would have to have on site, how many shipwrights, how many millwrights, how many welders, what their level of accomplishment or professional standards would be.
So
Can
through
you
the chair,
look into that before council, please?
certainly, Councillor, we can provide further information for you on that at council. Just to note two things, one being that with the confirmation of award this month, we will certainly be moving much more quickly forward with confirmation of a design, an actual product that we're getting from the supplier, as opposed to something theoretical. And second, to note that these vessels are certainly modern and pushing the agenda in terms of naval technology compared to what we have now, but they're not necessarily dissimilar from what, for example, the airport ferry operates. Again, an electric ferry moving across Lake Ontario. There are other examples there, and we expect there to be suppliers or vendors who can support the maintenance side as well.
There could be suppliers, and so you'd expect a certain standard at that particular company.
We certainly would, yes.
You'd expect to have a journey person there. Would that be a standard that you would expect?
We would make sure that our contracts outline exactly what's required to maintain that.
Currently, is that in your contract?
I have to come back to you at council with that information.
Is that in your contract with the dry dock that currently exists? I'll ask procurement if that's something that's in there. Which level of staffing is required?
Through the chair, this is something that I will have to look into since I'm not in-depthly familiar with the contract requirements.
So just looking at, and what's the okay, I'll leave it there and I'll come back at that at council. Thank you.
Or Mr. Dayton, you want to?
Yeah, through the chair, I just would want to add, just, you know, in terms of the line of questioning, the current ferries that are rotating through dry dock every 5 years that we do have a contract for, you know, that dry dock schedule, the repair and certifications all meet Transport Canada's requirements. So when the vessel goes in for repair and maintenance, we have staff on site to inspect those staff. Do have marine
Which staff are there?
So we have 2 staff. One is a supervisor of ferry operations. The other is the marine coordinator. Both have marine experience. And for example, with the last on Guyara dry dock repairs, they were on site daily. And we're inspecting and making sure that the repairs were being done in accordance with Transport Canada requirements. The boats then went through certification, sea testing before being returned to service, which is...
So there'd never be a situation where you wouldn't have a journey person on staff doing welding and fixing our boats?
Our staff, Donna can maybe speak to what...
I'm just asking. That'd be your expectation, wouldn't it?
We wouldn't have staff necessarily doing welding of
No,
vessels.
you don't have staff, but the dry dock would have to have
would have to have.
certain level of certification, journey person standard.
Correct.
And currently, I believe that those, anyway, that's a procurement issue, and anyway, it's more than 5 years if something happens or there's something, painting or something of that nature. And is that something you do in-house or do it at the dry dock?
Last question, Councillor.
Through the chair, so there's components that are done in-house and components that are done through...
Which one for the painting?
We'd have to follow up those details for you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Fletcher. We're going to bring it back into committee. Questions of staff on this item? I saw Councillor Burnside, Councillor Holiday. Sorry? You bet. All right, Councillor Burnside, questions of staff?
Super duper, thanks. So 92 million for the two ferries, is that the right number?
Sorry, I couldn't hear the question.
92 million for the two ferries, is that the correct number? Okay, thank you. Is that consistent with the original number or estimate, or was that more? I thought the original estimate was somewhere around 80 million.
So as of this February, we had $89 million in our budget for this project. I will note that going through the, the RFP process then does confirm cost estimates in a real world of what the industry is putting back to us, and $92 million was the bid of the highest ranked dominant.
Oh, okay. Okay, so what, and I know I saw on there about a contingency. What sort of issues, if as it were, would escalate the cost past the 92 million? Because it just seems that the numbers keep changing.
Sure.
And I recognize why they did on this one,
Right.
because it was an estimate. I'm
Now that we're at the stage where we're signing a contract and entering into an agreement with this party, the value there in the contract is the 92 million. There are contingencies that backing that up. It's actually included within 92. And there's also various performance guarantees and other measures in the terms that we've negotiated with Dom that keep us either on schedule or on cost.
So if we weren't to change any of the criteria, like we want more capacity or whatever, if whatever that contract is, that's what it's going to be.
Through the chair, that's
Like you're not going to come back and say, well, actually it's now 104 million.
Through the chair, that wouldn't be anticipated unless there was direction from council to change something around the design specifications, but that would require renegotiation of the contract. The contract value's been set, and once approved by council, those are the terms by which they would complete the work.
Okay, so I recognize the design thing, but could the supplier come back and say, it's not 92, it's now 102, if we don't change any of the design specifications?
Through the chair, unless...
Because I know we have other reports that come through here that, it's now $8 million more. And I'm just trying to get my head around that.
So through the chair, the contract has been set at the price point that would be awarded, and unless there's any scope change or delay in something on the city's part, then that would be the expected costs.
Okay, thank you. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Burnside. Councillor Holiday, questions of staff?
Thanks, Chair. What were the two ferries that are being replaced, the existing ones? The Angara and?
The Angara and the Inglis.
And the Inglis. So the Inglis is 400 passengers, the Angara is 220. And what's the new capacity?
So the new capacity on the replacement of the Angara or the RoPax would have nearly, 400 passengers per trip with 14 vehicles, or nearly 1,000 passengers per trip without vehicles.
Sorry, if I can just clarify that. So right now with the Angara, it's 220 passenger capacity, rising to 650 in the new replacement vessel. The difference was 400 is how we said. And then the William Inglis right now accommodates 309 passengers. That will be replaced with a vessel that will accommodate 1,300 passengers.
1,300, okay. What about trucks and so on? Like, so the Angara was one of those open cut ferries that you see all over the place. You can put a truck onto it. Can you do the same thing with the new one?
Yes, so the new passenger vehicle vessel is intended to accommodate all of the commercial vehicles, the operational vehicles, the school buses that currently travel across the water.
Cement truck, no problem?
There can be accommodation of approximately 2 trucks.
But you could put something heavy or dangerous on it if you had to move it across?
Correct.
Okay, all right. Has council ever seen a total life cycle cost? You know, the Holiday family got a new minivan a couple of years ago, and so we made sure that we went through, you know, things. We got a hybrid, we wanted to look at the fuel price savings and the maintenance and so on, and there were questions about staff and so on. Have you ever seen a full view of what all of this looks like?
Through the chair, I don't believe we calculated it for the full life cycle cost of the asset at this point.
Like a business case?
With staffing and costing, the challenge with the staffing side is we won't know yet what Transport Canada's requirements are going to be for staffing the vessel. So it's difficult to project the full operating impact of the capital at this stage. That would certainly be the next, series of work that we would undertake with Transport Canada.
Let's go back to the basics. In 2022, the report notes that there was a change from a diesel or at least a hybrid to a fully electric. How was that decision arrived at? Like, I mean, it was voted through the committee, but how did it's a fairly fundamental change.
So to go through the full trajectory, originally council direction was for a diesel vessel. Then there was confirmation to move to hybrid in 2019.
Yeah.
There was soon after that pause and analysis done with KPMG as well as other naval experts on options, both in terms of cost as well as the function of the fleet. And direction in 2022, as you noted, was to move towards fully electric.
Was it staff direction or was it council's direction to go to fully electric?
Council's direction in 2022 to go fully electric.
And did we ever see a business case to do that?
There was a report that outlined high-level terms of business case and analysis done at that point.
And was it really clear that it was cheaper in the life cycle, or was it a price premium to go to electric?
Two notes from that report, one being that the construction cost was considered to be comparable, whether hybrid or fully electric.
Okay.
And second, that there would be over $1 million annual cost savings in terms of fuel between hybrid and electric.
Right, like $20 million over the lifespan.
For the lifespan, correct.
So is it staff's position that it's a clear business case to go there? What about a comparison to all diesel?
Sorry, Councillor, you're straying away from the reports that are before us today.
Electric ferry.
Right. So you're straying away from the reports before us. So if you could focus on the reports before us, I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
I want to hit yes. Otherwise I got to hit no.
Turning your clock back on. So if you could stick to the reports before us, thank you.
Okay. What are the variables in the price of the ships between now and delivery, including, is steel price going to affect it, or are there other variables that could affect it? You mentioned contingencies.
As with other, I guess, initiatives by the city to procure a product, in this case, we're procuring 2 large vessels. It's the quoted price that we're contracted, they are contracted to supply upon. The contingency is roughly $10 million and does allow for changes, but it's not expected that, for example, steel costs would be changing the cost. It's what's been quoted to us by the supplier that we're holding them to a contract with terms to, if that's how we said, modify costs if, in fact, the city was responsible for some sort of delay or increase or change to scope.
What are the major life cycle pieces that we still have to contend with as council? Will you be coming back with other reports for shoreside, other procurements that are needed to complement this, or is this all in?
Through the chair, there will be other forthcoming reports related to the shoreside infrastructure, since that work is now being fully assessed now that we have confirmation of design and what the shoreside requirements are. There will be further reports coming forward with respect to what the shoreside infrastructure costs are going to be, but that would be inclusive of replacement of all 4 vessels.
Okay.
Thank you, Councillor Holliday. Other questions on these reports? Councillor
I'd like to
Chang?
ask. Thank you through the chair. So the Canada Infrastructure Bank is lending $75 million to British Columbia's ferry service to help buy 4 zero-emission vessels and install the electric charging infrastructure. Have we applied for any similar funding?
Through the chair, we have not applied for that funding, and certainly it's something we can look into to see if we would be eligible.
Because they do plan to use ferry fares to repay the loan. So, given the many financial constraints on our capital budget, state of good repair, I think it would be really important to explore this funding source, which is supporting British Columbia. Does the expertise to fix piggybacking off Councillor Fletcher's questions, do we project that the expertise to fix these vessels exists in our city, given that it's such a unique vehicle? We don't have other companies running electric ferries.
Through the chair, so we, as noted earlier, we'll develop the RFP and specifications required for the ongoing maintenance and repairs of the vessels, and then determine what the appropriate contract would be to award at that time. I do know that the CFO did have a further response to your earlier question, though.
Okay.
Through the chair, with regards to the Canada Infrastructure Bank, we actually have met with them on many occasions on different opportunities that might exist here in the city. It's important to note the Canada Infrastructure Bank does not provide funding, they provide financing opportunities. So we will look at the financing opportunities in relation to our own financing costs and determine where it's appropriate and makes sense for us to engage with the Canada Infrastructure Bank. And there are opportunities we continue to look at with them to determine where it's best suited for us to advance.
Is it helpful to get $75 million? Let's say we secure that. Is it helpful to get that support of a loan?
Through the chair, so it's important to know the 75 million is not funding, it's financing. So we would look through other channels to acquire financing of 75 million. The question would be, where is the benefit? Are we able to secure a preferred rate that is lower than our cost of financing? Is there a risk transfer element? Are there costs embedded into that agreement that we may not have otherwise been responsible for if we procured it on our own or if we issued the debt on our own? So there's different aspects that we continue to look at with all opportunities that may exist.
Mm-hmm. So this will continue to be explored, given that it's a substantial amount that we need to continue working on this ferry and the supporting infrastructure. Is that correct?
Yeah, we continue to engage with Canada Infrastructure Bank on many opportunities to determine where it's appropriate to advance.
Right. Just back to the maintenance, in case the expertise does not exist in the city to maintain these, so an RFP would not prove fruitful, is there a possibility that we will need to send people to Romania, where the ship is being manufactured, to learn about the ship, to learn how to maintain it and develop that skill inside the city?
Through the chair, I mean, we would expect to leverage whatever expertise we can within the province, ideally, and within the country. I wouldn't envision a situation where we would be needing to send vessels back to Romania, but keeping in mind that there will be a warranty period that we will have with Damon that will certainly require their assistance should we need anything repaired or replaced throughout the warranty.
And Councillor, if I can add, the agreement with the shipbuilder also includes virtual training and other training mechanisms for city staff to be, quote unquote, onboarded in advance of the vessel actually arriving in Toronto Harbor.
There's nothing that they touch that works.
I'm concerned to hear about virtual training. I think there's a ship being built and there's an opportunity where, so I wasn't suggesting that ships should be sent back to Romania, but I think there should be an examination of perhaps sending staff to Romania to look at the ship, to learn about it, since we're taking ownership of something that is very unique and different from anything else in our fleet.
To clarify, the training is both virtual and in person, and in the shipyard isn't necessary. That has been contemplated. Thank you.
I couldn't hear that answer. Sorry.
We will be sending staff to Romania as part of this arrangement to undertake training to help oversee construction and to ensure that when we accept the ships and Transport Canada certifies them, we're able to operate them safely and within the certified requirements.
I have two more questions, Chair. Would I be able to ask them?
Sure, go ahead.
Thank you. So the ferries, will they need to be charged during the day, or will all the charging happen overnight?
Through the chair, so the estimated charging requirements is every 4 trips. The ferries would require charging, and the charging time is estimated to be about 6 minutes.
Oh, 6 minutes, that's great. And in case of battery failure, which batteries are the critical piece in this, will there be backup batteries purchased and available in the horrible case that any of these batteries fail?
So through the chair, as your question anticipates, in case of emergency, there would be backup options, yes.
Right. And so what was the original cost estimated for the ferry? So we heard in February is 89, it's now 92, but this has come back to GDC a few times, I think 5. What was the original estimate for 2 ferries?
So this has come back to GGC or Budget Committee in a number of different forms. And that estimate has changed over the years. So I would be going back quite far if you wanted the original estimate. But the first time that 2 vessels appeared in PFR's budget was 2020, and it was for $25 million at that time.
Thank you, Councillor Cheng.
Thank you.
Councillor Mansis, did you have questions of staff? Councillor Mansis or Councillor Crisanti? I also need you, sorry, 2, 4, no, we're good with 4. Councillor Mantis or Councillor Crisanti? Going once? Going twice? Okay, so we're now moving on to speakers. Speakers on this item? Deputy Mayor Malik, did you want to?
And this is speaking on 7 and 8.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, and sorry, this is speakers on 7 and 8. Sorry. Go ahead. Sorry to interrupt, Deputy Mayor Malik.
No problem. Thank you for allowing me some time at the committee. It seems like we've been talking about the island a lot lately, and particularly about these ferries. And for me, that is a demonstration of the tremendous amount of care and commitment that Torontonians have to Toronto Island. It is a jewel. It's visited by at least 500,000 people every year, and we know that because of how well used and well loved our ferries are. And we all share that, memories of those important and treasured experiences on the island, and especially what it means to us now for downtown residents like me who don't have backyards of our own, and for those making trips across the city, and from visitors from near and far. It is such a critical green space, one of our largest parks in the city. And we know that what we have in front of us today is about continuing to increase and improve access to the park and make it better for all of us. That's been a priority for me from the very start, and there's a number of decisions that were made before I arrived that are landing here today. And many of them are ones that we are proud of, and we should continue to be able to support as a city and as councillors, especially when it comes to our climate leadership and electrification. But particularly, these larger ferries are designed for faster loading and better circulation, which means getting more people to the island quicker and having more time to enjoy their visits in a more reliable way. As we've heard, the new engine design means trips can better adapt to conditions in the harbor for more reliable service dock to dock. And full electrification of these boats will help us meet our climate leadership goals while saving money in the process. Now more than ever, we need to be able to have access to green space. It's essential for our health and well-being, for the health of our city, and Toronto Island is one of the most important places for us to be able to fulfill that. I appreciate the questions that have been raised by committee members and the commitment from city staff and the DCM to be able to work with us to ensure that we have good, clear answers to how we are bringing these ferries on board and how we'll ensure that the great benefits that we are anticipating from them are ones that we can have for a long time to come. We're also about to improve we're also in the process of being able to approve the Toronto Island Park Master Plan and its 25-year plan to enhance this beloved park, including access to it. And I do want to give credit to city staff who have engaged in the long process to get us to this point and incorporated important consultation and expertise to the design during the review process. Now, as we look at what we have in front of us, we do have a commitment to keep this project moving forward thoughtfully and with care, and continue to get the work of putting these boats in the water as soon as possible and providing better service as our top priority. I want to thank everyone who has been part of this process as well. Of course, city staff and I, and of course, community members who have been also long awaiting this outcome. And I do urge members of this committee and my colleagues to support the staff recommendations so that we keep moving ahead in a thoughtful and swift way. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Malik. Councillor Fletcher?
Thank you. Sorry.
No, go ahead. Councillor Fletcher, visiting councillors, did you want to speak?
Yes, thank you. Could you take my time back, please? I thought that Councillor Holliday wanted to say something before I spoke. I just want to say that the ferries are part of a very complex, what I'll call water network in the inner harbor and the outer harbor. And I think that in its relationship to the master plan, and they'll both be coming to council, that we can't think about the island, we can't think about the inner harbor, outer harbor, without thinking of the water. And of course, ferries are a very iconic Toronto way to move back and forth across from the island. And the capacity building that looks possible with these ferries, it's exponential, because if you've ever been there to the island on Canada Day or Caribana Day, the lineups are great, and we do need to make sure people can go across. I just want to speak for a minute on for this committee and for the members of this committee about ferries and watercraft, that I believe that this is the most efficient way to take people back and forth from the island. They can take transit, they can get across, they can get home on transit. It's built like that around a complete trip. The notion, and to remind everybody that the Toronto Inner Harbor and Outer Harbor are full of other kinds of watercraft. And I have the numbers, the number of large freighters that are coming into the inner harbor, the port, the fact that it's a port. So there's no easy answer, and I know some folks want to get rid of the ferries and put up a bridge, but given the fact our lift bridge is currently up and stuck there, it's not exactly something that you can count on. And there are many, many other fleet that are coming through there. Last week I was down, I saw a Viking cruise ship. Cruising the Great Lakes is now a very big thing. They're parked on our dock wall. All of the sugar that comes into the city from Redpath, in and out through the Eastern Gap. All of the salt that comes to our city, in and out through the Eastern Gap. All of the materials for cement that come into our city, in and out through the Eastern Gap. So that this notion that somehow there's just ferries in the harbor and we don't need that, we could do something else, is, with all due respect, not a realistic solution in any way. So that's the first thing I want to say. The second is that I understand previously that the ferries were under the TTC and then they got moved under parks. We have changed how we do our business in the city, and we have our Energy and Environment Office, and obviously electric ferries are something that Mr. Nolan and his team, I believe, would be very involved in, and that would be our current DCM Corporate Services. So I think in this exercise, we also need to look into the future and see, as a fleet, as a marine fleet, if this is best placed in the Parks Department or it's best placed under Corporate Services. Obviously, it's serving the large park. And I don't want everybody to get all excited, but I do think that right placing all of the things that we're doing in the city has been underway for a while, and that might be something that we would also want to consider at this time. These are very specialized craft, and they are just highly specialized craft. So that's my remarks, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Fletcher. We're going to bring it back into committee for speakers. Councillor Holliday.
Yeah. Thanks. It's a request for just a supplemental report. It just asks about the total life cycle cost of the ferries. And I'll make special note, it is not a lot of time between now and council. I'm hoping that you've got a lot of the information to staff and just to take reasonable efforts to prepare a report. I understand there was consulting work before, but I just think if council is going to be making a $92 million commitment through a purchase order for 2 vessels, we should probably have a sense of what the total cost is. And I would just note, there's been a lot of reports on this particular item, including line items in the capital plan that was noted. It started at 25 million and went up to 92 with a whole bunch of decisions in between. I just think that council would benefit from a bit of financial reporting to mark our understanding of what this is at this point in time. It's just good governance to do that. I just appreciate the work on this, and it's unique. I think it's been quite some time, since 1960s, I guess, was the last time the city bought a ferry. So I think things have changed a lot. And I'm very interested in the decision-making process and the life cycle cost of these vessels. And notably, it was explained to council that there is a vast potential in fuel savings. So if there's a way to integrate that into the report, I would really appreciate it. And I thank staff for their work on this. And thank you, Mr. Chair, for allowing me to speak.
Thank you, Councillor Holiday. Other speakers on this item? Councillor Cheng?
Thank you. I am grateful for this report, and I'm grateful also for Councillor Holiday's motion. I think having a good financial view of the road ahead is important, and given the many amendments that have come to GGC and the incredible increase from 25 to 92, which doesn't capture the increases that we will face with regard to the shoreside infrastructure, charging infrastructure, I think that it's important to have that view, and I hope that we will work towards a sustainable financial operating model, because recouping 20 million over 20 years is great, but that's still a drop in the bucket of 92 million and the other millions that we will have to spend on maintenance, on infrastructure upgrades. So it's important that we work towards climate action, but there is the financial piece. And I guess I'm afraid that because we are embarking on a new journey, and it's important that, you know, we set the bar in terms of climate action, but new sometimes feels like we have a blank check approach, that things keep coming back and we just keep saying yes because now we are moving forward and there's no undo button. And that is worrisome with all the financial pressures that we have as a city. So having a larger perspective of the lifetime cycle costs, as well as thinking ahead of when these new ferries come online, what is that sustainable financial operating model that addresses not just the operations, but the capital that's been invested. I think we all need to pitch in order to get to net zero. So I look forward to the report at council. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cheng. Other speakers on this item? Items, I should say. Seeing none, I'm going to speak last. I just want to thank staff for all their work on this. You know, as a long-time user of the ferries, both with my family and taking scouts and cubs camping on Snake Island, I'm very much looking forward to them. You know, taking the Onondaga on a cold winter day back and forth from the island is not a pleasant experience for anybody in the winter. So having these, you know, even in vehicles inside in temperature controlled ferries, I think is going to be a huge asset. You know, spending days either at the Jack Layton terminal at the beginning of the day in large crowds waiting for ferries, and at the end of the day watching people and scurrying back to the ferry terminal because you don't want to miss the last ferry with young children and end up taking a water taxi. Seeing the capacity of the new ferry going from 309 people to 1,300 people, I think it's going to be incredible. And I can think of times, you know, the ferries that run now, you know, the last one being built was at 1960. And, you know, listening to kids on the ferries and they're saying to their parents, this is a cool boat. I didn't know they had antique ferries. And it's like, well, they're not antiques. And, talking to the staff about the work they put into maintaining them and the boilers that have been replaced and all of the hard work and dedication they put into keeping them functioning and looking for parts. It's long overdue, and I'm looking forward to riding on the new one. So I'm very happy to support both of these reports. So we have GG 14.7. Oh, sorry, and Councillor Holiday's. Yep, on number 8, we have the sub. Yep, I'll move this up. So we have the supplementary on number 8, which is before us. I'm gonna do 7 first. Yep. Is Councillor Holiday's on 7 or 8? 8. Okay, so we have number 7 before us, GG 14.7. I'm not gonna read out the whole title. All in favor? Any opposed? And that carries. And then we have GG 14.8. That's a shorter title, Process for Award of Negotiation Request for Proposal Document number 405-3424337 for the construction of 2 new fully electric ferry vessels. And we also have the supplementary reports before us. First, we have Councillor Holiday's motion, which is on the screen. All in favor? And that's unanimous. And then we have the recommendations and the supplementary report on number 8. All in favor? Any opposed? And that's unanimous. Sorry? And then item is amended number 8. All in favor? Any opposed? That's unanimous. Thank you very much. And then our next item is GG 14.11, amendment to blanket contract number 470-22859 of the existing property management agreement with Kipling Realty Management Incorporated at Canoe Landing Facilities for Parks, Forestry, and Recreation, Ward 10, held by Councillor Chang. Councillor Chang, questions of staff?
I had my questions answered. I'd like to move staff recommendations.
Okay. Does anybody else have any? Councillor Holiday, you have questions on number 10?
Yes, thank you, Chair.
Sorry, number 11.
Here we go. Okay. I wanted to know, there was a delay in, it looks like a delay either in commencing or getting to this point with respect to the procurement for the service between the contract expiry and getting this one implemented. Can anyone explain that?
Through the chair, I will certainly ask my colleague in PMMD to help answer what some of the rationale was for the delay, but I do know that we were working with our colleagues at TDSB and TCDSB to address some of the terms that we want to include in the next RFP, noting that this is the first time we had procured property management services, and to take some extra time to make sure that the next RFP reflects the lived experience that we've had, and we can ensure that the next procurement is even more successful.
So this report covers the interim period between the contract expiry and the new contract, and whoever the successful proponent is for that.
That is correct.
Okay, and this is extending those terms and prices, or are we paying a premium for this period of time?
It's the same, through the chair, it's the same price.
Thank you for your answers.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Holiday. Other questions of staff on this item? Seeing none, Councillor Chang, would you like, sorry, you're moving the recommendations? Councillor Chang's moving the recommendations in GG 14.11. All in favor? That carries. Our next item is GG 14.13, amendment to purchase order 605-0005 with Yardi Canada Limited to integrate a centralized affordable rental housing access system into the existing web-based system to renew the existing license agreement, held by Councillor Chang. Councillor Chang, questions of staff?
Thank you. So this is a database system that we're implementing that supports people who are trying to secure affordable housing, supportive housing, subsidized housing. And I'm just wondering what, I've heard complaints that oftentimes people have to look at pictures that are not of the specific unit that they're wanting. And instead, it's a picture that says, this looks like the unit that you will get. And that can feel challenging to people who are most likely already quite vulnerable to commit to something they can't actually see. And I'm just wondering, in the implementation of this technology, is there a goal that we increase our data set to actually have pictures of all units available as they become available so that people don't have to make choices based on, I guess, pictures that are not actually reflective of what they're moving into?
Thank you for the question, Councillor. Doug Rollins from the Housing Secretariat. Our goal is to make sure that individuals have the best information to make the most informed housing decision. So to your question, we are constantly revamping and upgrading the database, and our hope would be that the pictures provided to applicants are reflective of the unit conditions. And certainly that is an operational issue outside the technology. The technology can support those pictures, and operationally we can work to do a better job in that regard.
And with regard to the technology, does this technology hold the long wait list? Is this how people are held in queue?
Through the chair, yes, you're correct, Councillor. This is the back-end tool to support the waiting list for rent-geared to income housing, and we'll be moving forward with the integration of a one-window access for affordable through this contract and in the months and years to come.
I've also heard instances where if a client chooses a unit and then goes to see it for the first time and they don't like it, that they get bumped to the bottom of the list. Is that true?
Thank you for the question, Councillor, and through the chair. So the province introduced a one refusal rule for the wait list some years ago. We have implemented that rule in accordance with the legislation, and it does require that someone who refuses a unit goes to the back of the list. That said, if there are issues with the unit, there are applicable refusal categories, and suitability for the unit is one. If an applicant feels there's extenuating circumstances related to the refusal, they also are allowed to request an internal review of that decision. So staff, including myself and my access to housing manager, can review that and reinstate their eligibility.
And if they are reinstated, do they then go back to where they were in the queue? Because
sorry, Councillor, I'm just going to pause your time here. You're straying away from the report before us. It's a contract award.
So I guess I'm just asking, does the technology allow a person to be reinstated in the same place in the queue that they were let go of previously? Does that technology
that's correct. That's correct, Councillor. Both the technology and the program and operation allow for that.
Great. Thank you very much. Those are my questions.
Thank you, Councillor Cheng. Other questions? Sorry, Councillor Holiday, questions of staff?
Yes, thank you, Chair. And Mr. Rollins is on there. Good. This report mentions that I think this system would also serve the affordable rental housing program, which is different from RGI. Is that correct?
That is correct, Councillor. Based on recommendations from Council in July of 2022, we were asked to likewise create a one-window access for affordable as the city progresses and expands access to those units.
So this is kind of like a list system, is it not? Lots of names on that, and then there's a matching process when people get to the top of the list.
That's correct, Councillor. It creates both an inventory of housing, provides a wait list for individuals applying for the benefit, And then based on council policy and applicable legislation, units are allocated in accordance with the priority rules.
And is this consistent with the recommendations of the Auditor General?
It builds off the recommendations of the Auditor General. As you know, we embarked on the choice-based technology just as that audit was taking flight, and many of the recommendations coming through that audit have been fulfilled through the implementation of the choice-based technology.
And finally, the report mentions it, but I know that the affordable rental housing, or do I have this right? Council's policy is that certain affordable rental housing is subject to a random draw. So in order for people to get matched to one of those units, it's a draw process. How does that work with this software? Is that part of this software, or is that outside of the software?
The software is an enabler to council's policy. So the software has the ability to adapt and change based on the prioritization that council establishes for affordable housing. The report back in July 22, councillor, details the recommendation from council to use a hybrid approach that identifies and recognizes people who've been waiting for housing, and also to streamline the random draw selection process as well, so that individuals, instead of going to individual housing providers who are individually creating those random draw activities, we will centralize it, have better access to data, and allow individuals to apply once versus multiple times.
So I just want to be certain I understand this. So this software holds a list of people, and you can enter prioritizing parameters into it based on policy. How does the random draw, does it then pluck people from the list as well that could be further down the list? Yep.
That's correct, councillor. Anyone wishing to participate in a random draw or access affordable housing would need to complete an application to get on the list. And then based on the parameters outlined in that July 22nd council report, or any subsequent ones that come forward with council, the system would be adjusted to give them effect, to utilize the technology to select households in accordance with council's policy.
Thank you, Mr. Rollins. Thank you, Chair.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Holiday. I'm just going to bring it outside of the committee for a moment. Councillor Fletcher, welcome back. You had questions of staff?
I just can't stay away from this committee, Chair. Just wanted to question two things. There's a choice-based system for rent geared to income and those who've been on the waiting list for a number of years, shifting over from paper to digital, correct? Yes, no?
Through the chair, that's correct, councillor.
That's correct. And of those, there's still a certain number who are I'll call them not accounted for. They're not on the new system, correct?
Through the chair, that's correct, councillor.
So last time it was about 20,000 people. Has it come down from that?
Through the chair, I would need to confirm with staff, but it's come down likely by a couple thousand.
By a couple of thousand. And this was Yardi that did this, did they do the whole database for this?
The database is provided by the service provider Yardi. The connection with applicants on the wait list is an operational matter managed by staff.
Did they design that database? Did Yardi design it, or was it off the shelf?
It was off the shelf. It was adjusted off the shelf platform.
Adjusted off the shelf platform. And so and now we have people that are competing for affordable rental, as Councillor Holiday has so ably let us know. And those are not people that, as my understanding, that list gets smaller and smaller. Where will those people go? Onto the centralized RGI list? Will you be maintaining a separate affordable housing list? Which one? Separate or part of the big one?
Thanks for the question, councillor. It's a bit of both. So we will be bringing everyone into a single database, and based on their income and their household criteria, we'll be identifying for them housing opportunities that meet their criteria. Some households will only be eligible for RGI. Some households will only be eligible for affordable, and there'll be some that would be eligible for both based on current maximum and minimum income criteria.
Okay, and so for the affordable, when you're posting, everybody's bidding on that, or it's a random draw. council's direction was to use the random draw until such time that you had a certain number or percentage of people where you could now use that as a waiting list. What's the status of that situation now?
So this contract, thanks for the question, Councillor, and through the chair, this PO amendment will allow us to continue to work with Yardi to move forward on the affordable housing access. The development has begun. We would look to complete that over the course of 2025 and get into a situation where we're able to pilot it for the first new affordable builds at the end of 2025 or early 2026.
So are you telling me that currently everything is being done from a draw when council said we shouldn't be operating in that way? Only 50% were to be done through a draw once we have the new. What's the status of that direction outside of being 2025? Are you telling me it's not till 2025?
That's correct, Councillor. With the approval of this report, we would have the procurement and funds necessary to advance the affordable housing build.
Did you not believe that this was something that was, in my opinion, this was to happen immediately? And that was a number of years ago that we agreed on that.
The direction for the came out in July 2022, and I believe our indication on that report, and I'll need to verify this, Councillor, was that we would be ready to go live in 2025.
So you're telling me that Yardi is unable to set something up quickly. How many people are in random draw? How many locations are in a random draw situation currently that are affordable?
I don't have that information offhand, Councillor.
You'll have that for council, won't you? How many times have we used that? And then, so every time everybody gets another chance, which was never the council direction, was it?
The council direction was to move forward with the development of affordable housing access system, which we are doing.
Well, the council direction was to move everybody as they're applying into a wait list, correct?
Yes, and that requires the development of a system, which this PO will enable us to do, and continue to keep pace with our objective for late 2025, early 2026. Did
you tell me that was 2022 that got passed?
I believe so, Councillor, in July 2022.
And so 2 years later, we only have the PO now? I guess these questions really are for the other deputy city manager. Deputy City Manager Raftis. I'm not expecting that this Deputy City Manager would be overseeing that. The wait list itself and how it should be populated and how quickly that should be going. So I think probably those questions should go in that direction. Pardon?
Last question, Councillor.
They should, sorry, be going to JAG, not this Deputy City, to DCM Sharma. So I don't want to put you on a spot where this DCM's trying to answer something not in his area, but I'm obviously concerned about the 2-year wait. Thank you.
Got it. Thank you, Councillor. Speakers on this item. Somebody move the recommendations. Councillor Cheng's moving the recommendations. Sorry? No, I already asked for speakers. You missed your opportunity. I'm kidding. Go ahead, Councillor Holiday.
I'd like to see you try that.
Stressing me out.
Go ahead, Councillor Holiday.
Chair, I'm going to vote for this, but I wanted to just briefly say that I've never liked, and I believe I opposed at council, the random draw process. But I do commend staff because I do remember the Auditor General's report placing a focus on the list matching process, which ultimately leads to better outcomes. So there's the good and bad from my perspective, but I'm prepared to advance it forward. Thank you for allowing me to speak.
Thank you, Councillor Holiday. Other speakers on this item? I saw Councillor Cheng's hand to move the recommendations. All in favor? That carries. Our next item is GG 14.16, non-competitive contract with Hootsuite Incorporated for the Enterprise Social Media Management Platform held by Councillor Cheng. Councillor, questions of staff?
Thank you. Through the chair, how did we land on Hootsuite? There are many social media aggregators out there, and is there a reason we're moving forward with Hootsuite without an RFP or considering other technology platforms?
Hi, Counselor, and through the chair, thanks for your question. We did go out with an RFP. Unfortunately, the RFP failed. So as a result, we are choosing to, or we're recommending to go with our current vendor, which is Hootsuite, which meets the needs of the corporation.
Given the many divisions that can benefit from a contract with Hootsuite, is there a bulk buy situation here where there is a discount because multiple divisions are signing on or can sign on?
So when we went out with the RFP through the chair, we put out our needs as a corporation, and that included all divisions. So right now, we have about 110 corporate social media channels and over 100 people that operate those channels. So this enterprise solution allows for all of them to participate as well. For the first time in this, we are now including CXD through 311. So there'll be some potential integrations there that we're looking to reap the benefits of.
So this contract allows for other divisions to join, but does not include the cost of those other divisions. Is that correct?
So all divisions have been included in this RFP, and we're well aware of their needs. A lot of divisional needs are handled through strategic public and employee communications. So in terms of what you're seeing who's assuming the costs, but all divisional needs have been incorporated into this proposal.
So for example, PFNR, which I know has an Instagram account that I follow, it's baked in somewhere in this cost, is that?
Yes, they are a part of this, and they have been a part of it. So they are an existing member of our Hootsuite solution.
And if we extend that, is there consideration for Toronto Public Library, for agencies of the city that I know also have extensive social media reach?
Through the chair, the solution we've landed on with Hootsuite would allow our rates, our terms, to be shared with city agencies and corporations.
And is there a substantial savings here?
I'm sorry, I wasn't able to hear the question.
Is there a substantial savings given how large this purchase is that covers so many divisions across our city?
Through the chair, yes, is the short answer. Essentially, when you are not buying individually for each channel, you are able to find savings through an enterprise solution like this.
So I know that many of my counselor colleagues, including myself, use social media aggregators. It's really important that we have tools to communicate to our constituents, to let them know about city policies, decisions, events. And is there consideration or opportunity to include counselors in this group buy for an important service that would be helpful to all counselor offices?
Through the chair, so the report that you see before you did not include counselors and their offices. However, we are happy to meet with counselors in their offices to see what their interests and needs are and see the feasibility of it working with the agreement with Hootsuite.
Great, thank you. Those are all my questions.
Thank you, Councillor Chang. Other questions on this item? Seeing none. Speakers on this item? Can I have Councillor Chang, you wanted to speak?
Yes. I have a motion. And this is just requesting to explore the feasibility of supporting members of council to use Hootsuite as a social enterprise solution. And I think as we become more technology-based, every office is using taxpayer dollars to use a variety of digital tools. These, especially, since the CRM that the city previously used was deemed out of date, and now we're all using our own different CRMs. But in addition to that, we're also using things like social media aggregators like Hootsuite, MailChimp. I know a lot of offices are using MailChimp. And so the fact that every office is personally subscribing instead of being part of the suite of tools that the city is using and benefiting from the purchase power of the city, I think is a lost opportunity in terms of benefiting taxpayers to support the operations of councillors' offices. So for this one in particular, I hope that we can consider how potentially councillors' offices could be supportive. And I think that there is an ongoing dialogue about the suite of many tools that the city uses, how councillors' offices could also benefit. So this is the start, but I think there's many more conversations that we can have to bring more efficiency and reduce costs for the city. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Cheng. Other speakers on this item? Seeing none, so we have the motion before by Councillor Cheng. All in favor? Any opposed? Seeing none, item is amended. All in favor? Seeing no opposed, that carries. And our next item is GG 14.18, redevelopment of the St. Lawrence Market North Emergency Non-Competitive Contract and Purchase Order Amendment for Contract Administration Services in Ward 13, held by Councillor Holyday. Councillor Holyday, questions of staff?
Nick McAllister, Legal Services. It's the recommendation of Legal Services that this item proceed in camera, as it will contain reference to confidential attachment protected by solicitor and client privilege.
We don't have a confidential attachment.
I think the advice is that, sorry, just watch your mouth.
Sorry, Councillor, we don't have a confidential attachment before us.
Okay, so can we get some clarity from the solicitor? Do we need to?
Sure. The understanding is that there are questions that are anticipated, or questions of staff that are being anticipated, which may refer to a confidential attachment from a previous council meeting. We could begin with the questions, then if we dive into that area, then we could go in camera.
Okay, because the confidential attachment's not before us.
That's correct. Okay, Paul, I can start. Would you mind just, Thank you. The report refers to the prime architect. Could you tell me who that is and their role?
Through you, Mr. Chair, to Councillor Holyday, it's Adamson and Associates. So their role is both acting as the architect of record as well as the payment certifier and also contract administrator.
Is that typical?
That is industry standard for the most part, where the architect of the design will act as the contract administrator and payment certifier. Reason for that, they're the ones that completed the design, and so when they're certifying work on site, they're the ones that actually ensure that the contractor is actually constructing what's actually got designed.
Okay, so the report, the body of the report, the largest line item is design coordination, $8,247,000, and it opens up by saying there have been significant errors and omissions with the design. Can you explain that to me?
In layman's terms, Councillor, this was a complex project in design. So what happens is when the contractor is reading the design package and looking at the architectural drawings, they go to actually construct it, they find an error with it. The contractor will then request what's called a request for information to the architect. The architect will look at it and determine, yes, there is an error in the design. reissue a new design package with respect to that error. Then the contractor will price it. It goes through a change process. We look at it because it needs to be done, because or else the building can't get constructed, whether it's architectural, mechanical, or electrical. And then this change order is issued to the contractor to proceed with that work.
Who issues the change order?
So to direct the work on site, the final direction is given by the architect through a change order. So it'll go through a process, Councillor. A request comes in, they're issued either a change control notice or a change directive. The design gets done, the contractor prices it, we agree to a price, and then the architect then issues the final CO to direct the work on site.
What's the client's role, which would be the city, in all of this?
We, at the end of the day, are the ultimate approver, but because it's a design, we go through our architect to issue the work directly to the contractor. And the reason for that is from a control perspective, to make sure that there's only one group that's actually instructing the work on site.
So I'm still struggling to understand. So in this case, it sounds like there were call them directives. Change directives made relating to design coordination for a value of $8 million.
That is correct.
Within the hands of the architect?
Hands of the owner, so the city, who directs the architect to then issue the CO to the contractor.
So let me play this back. An issue is raised, the architect prepares a remedy recommendation.
We approve.
The city approves. And then
the on-site direction is given by the architect to the contractor.
Right, they prepare the documentation.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. So what happened in this case? How did that chain play out to get us this report today?
So, Councillor, so there are many changes that happen on site. So the process, again, contractor issues what's called the request for information to us, the city. We have a change log. We track all changes. It could either be a change directive or what's called a change control notice to get estimates on what we believe the cost is. At the same time, if it's design errors or design errors and omissions, then the architect will provide a package for the contractor to approve that estimate. Once it comes to us, we approve the estimate, and then the architect provides direction to the contractor to do the work on site.
Okay.
So we're keeping a change log of all the changes.
So why there? So I guess this report is about the consultant, but this refers to a companion report that will come to council. So why this process then? All of these changes, and then there's a change in budget.
So, Councillor, this is an isolated case. What should have happened was, once the change log exists and there's pricing order estimates on it, the staff at that time that were on this project should have came forward and said, look, we require additional funds. They waited till the end of the project. There was a manager who's no longer with the city anymore. And then when it transferred over to our project director, we noticed that the previous staff did not bring forward the forecast that we needed the additional funds. And now that we're at the end of the project, in order to keep the project going and not to run any risk of the contractor walking off site or incurring more costs, we wanted to ensure that we could complete the project, within a reasonable schedule without having to incur any additional costs as noted in the report.
Chair, I've got one more. I'm in your hands. Go ahead. All right. Go ahead. So there's a basket of things, unforeseen conditions, program-driven changes, and then design coordination, which specifically says errors and omissions.
That's correct.
What is the process to place accountability for errors and omissions?
Because at the end of the project, most likely the contractor will submit their own claims. So when we evaluate, so there's a process at the end of the project where we sit down with all parties and we go through all of the claims, and those that are caused by the architect at that time will seek remedy against their liability.
The design.
That's correct.
Design error.
So the contractor may bring forward claims related to these design errors. Then we'll go to the architect to actually remedy those claims.
Okay. Thank you, Chair.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Holiday. Other questions of staff on this item? Councillor Burnside?
Yeah, thank you. Through you, yeah, can you just repeat the part about the manager that is no longer with the city and didn't come forth? Can you repeat that line again?
So the person in charge of the project had the change log, knew that there were changes, and was waiting till the end of the project to bring forward all of the changes. They didn't forecast the additional funds that are requested here, because typically in all of our, we have a change control process that everyone follows. So if we know that a project is going to go over budget, we'll forecast that additional funds. If it requires coming to GGC committee, like last month we brought forward a report knowing we needed more money, and that's the normal process. In this case, with the transition from one project manager to another, we noticed that on the change log, we required, all the changes were there, but he didn't forecast, or that person didn't forecast the required funds.
Okay, so the process is to forecast the required funds, correct?
That is correct.
Okay, so you have a project manager, and it's left in their hands, there's no oversight of that project manager? Like,
There is
a
oversight,
director
but at the time, the manager was saying we were on budget, so I get a report every month, and I kept asking, is there additional funds required? In the forecast, there was no forecast. He had stated, that person, sorry, had stated that they were still on budget, but when the project transferred over, we realized we needed the additional monies that were on that change log to complete the project.
Does that happen a lot?
This is the isolated case that this happened.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Burnside. Other questions of staff on this item? Seeing none. Speakers, Councillor Holyday, you held it?
I did. If I could ask the clerk to display my motion, it's a very short one. I just am going to refer a copy of this to the Auditor General. This meshes with my questions earlier on the financial process, just about how controls work and procurement commitments. And I've said it before at the committee, sometimes I feel like we get reports and we really don't have a choice on them because it's so late in the process. And in this case, the staff have laid out that a lot of work and things have happened. And we've got to follow through on the process in order to reach the end goal of the overall project. So I just want to send a copy over to take a look at it. And I'll let the Auditor General consider if something needs to be further looked at. Thank you, Chair. That's all.
Thank you, Councillor Holyday. Thank you. So we have the amendment by Councillor Holyday. All in favor? That passes unanimously. Item is amended. All in favor? That carries. And I believe we're done for the day. Motion to adjourn, Councillor Burnside. All in favor? That carries. Thank you, everybody, and thank you to all the staff. Much appreciated for all your work.
Thank you, Chair.